What if death, that threshold we all fear, and before which humanity has built empires of faith and dogma, were not the end we have been told? What if the promises of judgment or reward, etched into the collective soul for millennia, were in fact a carefully woven narrative, an invisible prison designed not for salvation, but for control? Prepare to question the very foundation of your existence, to explore the depths of being with a mind that challenged the limits of the possible, a mind whose deepest legacy remained hidden, forbidden, silenced for more than 100 years. Nikola Tesla. His name evokes electricity, inventions, the future. But what about the Tesla who explored the soul, who believed he measured consciousness, who glimpsed the beyond not as an ethereal realm, but as a frequency, a vibration? This journey is not for the faint-hearted, but for those who yearn for the truth beyond the veil. Open your mind. The revelation begins now. If you feel the call of the unknown, if your soul resonates with the search for truth, like this video, share your first impressions in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss a single step of this inner alchemy. Since time immemorial, death has been the great enigma, the final curtain behind which life as we know it ceases. Cultures, creeds, and philosophies have all attempted to decipher its meaning, offering answers ranging from total annihilation to passage into a spiritual realm, an eternal judgment, a promised land. But what if all these constructs, however, beautiful or terrifying, were nothing more than veils, master illusions erected to keep humanity docile, to perpetuate systems of power based on the fear of the unknown? History shows us how the interpretation of death has been a fundamental tool in the architecture of social and spiritual control. We have been taught to fear punishment, to crave reward, to adhere to strict dogmas under the threat of eternal damnation or the loss of a promised bliss. This simplistic narrative of death, this end of consciousness or binary judgment, might be the greatest of lies. Let's pause to reflect. Why the constant emphasis on an afterlife that can only be accessed through obedience to earthly or celestial authority figures? Why the systematic suppression of other visions, other ancestral wisdoms that spoke of cycles, transformations, and the continuity of energy? Perhaps the hidden mysteries of existence, particularly those linked to the transition from the physical to the non-physical, were intentionally obscured, hidden in forbidden texts to prevent human beings from discovering their true immortal nature, their intrinsic connection to the cosmic energy that animates the universe. If death is not an end, if it is simply a metamorphosis, a change of state similar to the transition of water to steam, then fear loses its power. And without fear, the structures of control that rely on it crumble. This view of death as a tool of control aligns strangely with the implications of certain fringe research, with the clues left behind by minds that dared to look beyond the accepted. They intuited that what we call death is only the shedding of a layer, the return of consciousness to a different vibrational state. Not a moral judgment, but an energetic transition. The idea that consciousness itself is a form of energy, not produced by the brain, but perhaps tuned to it, is a concept that radically challenges conventional beliefs about mortality. If our essence is energy, what happens to that energy when the physical vehicle ceases to function? Does it dissipate without a trace, or does it simply change frequency, dimension? The answer to this question, whispered on the margins of science and spirituality, suggests that perhaps we were never truly alive in the limited sense we believed, nor will we die in the absolute sense instilled in us. And it is precisely this continuity, this persistence of the essential vibration, that certain powers might have wanted to keep hidden, fearing the spiritual enlightenment that would result from its knowledge. Consider the ancient rites of passage, the cosmogonies, that described the soul as a divine spark, a portion of cosmic energy. Many of these teachings have been distorted or eradicated, replaced by narratives that promoted reliance on intermediaries, for post-mortem salvation. The idea that your fate after death depends on external judgment or adherence to an imposed set of rules is an extremely potent control mechanism. It disempowers the individual, keeping them focused on the promised or feared afterlife, rather than on the fullness and understanding of the present. The truth could be much simpler, yet infinitely more complex. Consciousness does not die. But if consciousness persists, how does it interact with the beyond? Is it a place, a state, a frequency? And most disturbingly, do we leave any trace, any resonance of our vibrational existence on this plane we leave? And is that resonance, that vibration that remains, simply a meaningless echo? Or does it possess an intelligence, a capacity for interaction that transcends our linear understanding of time and space? Ancient wisdom, preserved in fragments scattered across the globe, in myths we believe to be mere tales, or in forbidden texts that rarely reach unsuspecting hands, suggests the latter. They speak of a thin veil, not an insurmountable wall, between what we call life and what we perceive as death. This veil is not geographical, but vibrational. The beyond is not a place we go, but perhaps a state we access, or that remains, accessible to those with sufficient inner alchemy to adjust their own frequency. The great initiates of antiquity did not seek a distant heaven. They sought spiritual enlightenment here and now, understanding that the fullness of existence, the connection with primordial cosmic energy, is not reserved for a post-mortem state. It is inherent in every spark of consciousness, waiting to be awakened. The occult mysteries of the esoteric schools of Egypt, Greece, or the Vedic traditions were not primarily about how to save oneself after death, but about how to awaken while living, how to perform the great work of internal transformation, inner alchemy, which allows one to perceive the illusory nature of separation and the true continuity of existence. This perspective dynamites control, because if death is not a punitive end or an external reward, the authority over your destiny transcends the need for intermediaries. Your salvation, or your post-existential state, becomes the direct manifestation of your level of consciousness and your vibration. But if this vibrational consciousness persists and perhaps leaves a resonance, a kind of shadow or energetic imprint on the physical plane, who or what might be interested in interacting with that imprint? Is it possible that what some perceive as ghosts, spirits, or entities are not trapped wandering souls, but energetic remnants, information patterns left behind, or perhaps something even more complex that feeds on or interacts with this? Resonance? If consciousness is cosmic energy in a particular configuration, what happens when that configuration dissipates? Is the energy reused? Is there a residue? And if a residue remains, does it possess an echo? Can it be manipulated, summoned, or perhaps be the source of manifestations that challenge our current physics? The persistence of energy after the death of the physical body leads us to the troubling question: is there really the possibility of a connection or influence from the other side? If consciousness is, in essence, a vibrational configuration of cosmic energy, and if this vibration can persist beyond the dissolution of the physical vessel, as that visionary seemed to intuit, then we are facing a revelation that shakes the foundations of our perceived universe. This is not a modern idea. It resonates with the ancient wisdom bequeathed by countless cultures that understood the interconnectedness of everything, the wave nature of existence, long before modern science began to babble about fields and frequencies. The hidden mysteries of ancient traditions, often encoded in forbidden texts or transmitted in secret, speak of subtle planes, of the continuity of the soul, of the interaction between the visible and invisible worlds. Perhaps the energetic imprint we speak of is not just a mindless echo, but a complex pattern that retains the informational essence of the consciousness that once inhabited it. If the brain is an antenna that tunes the consciousness of the cosmic field, What happens when the antenna is dismantled? Does the signal dissipate completely, or does a portion remain resonating in the subtle atmosphere of reality, like a wave that, though weak, can still be detected by sensitive receptors? The search for spiritual enlightenment has always involved refining one's perception, calibrating the inner receiver. This is the essence of inner alchemy, transforming the lead of our dense, ordinary perception into the gold of a consciousness, capable of tuning into the higher frequencies, the less visible layers of existence. If we achieve this internal transmutation, we might begin to perceive not only our own connection to cosmic energy, but also those persistent resonances, those energetic signatures left by others. But if these signatures exist, if they are more than mere ghosts of residual heat, if they contain information, or even a remnant spark of intention or pattern, what implications does this have? Are they accessible? Can they be manipulated or influenced? Could understanding this energetic persistence open doors to interactions that defy our current logic, revealing connections or forces operating from the subtlest planes of reality? What if, beyond mere imprints, there are forms of consciousness that never resided in a dense physical body as we know it, but are direct manifestations of cosmic energy at other frequencies with which we might learn to interact? The idea of an echo catcher, a machine that tunes into the soul frequencies that endure beyond the dense form, is not merely a modern technological fantasy. It resonates with the age-old quest to understand what in us persists when the body gives way. Ancient wisdom encoded in myths, rituals, and yes, in forbidden and time-veiled texts, often speaks of emanations of being, of the essence that travels, dissipates, or anchors its resonance in the fabric of reality. These hidden mysteries are not whimsical inventions, but profound attempts to map the subtle realms, those planes where cosmic energy interacts in ways that defy ordinary sensory perception. If such an echo exists, is it a mere passive imprint, like residual heat in ash, or does it carry a spark, a memory, an energetic pattern that still vibrates with the original intention or consciousness? The quest for spiritual enlightenment, in many traditions, involves precisely developing the ability to perceive these subtleties, to read the morphic field, to understand the language of frequencies beyond conventional hearing or sight. Inner alchemy is the process of refining not only the spirit, but the instrument of perception itself, transforming the dense structure of the being so that it can resonate sympathetically with these subtle waves, perhaps even with the soul frequencies left behind. But if the echo exists and can be detected, what does it mean to capture it? Is it a mere recording, like a voice on vinyl, or does it involve a form of interaction, of opening a channel through the veil? The dangers inherent in exploring these hidden mysteries, in delving into what some forbidden texts warn against, are not only physical. There are risks to the psyche, to the seeker's own energetic coherence. Tuning into these frequencies without proper preparation through inner alchemy might not lead to spiritual enlightenment, but rather to confusion, disintegration, or worse still, attracting influences whose nature is beyond our understanding and control. The notion that Tesla, that visionary who seemed to tune into cosmic energy itself to manifest his inventions, could conceive of a device to capture the resonance of the soul, suggests that he viewed these persistences not as ghosts, but as energetic phenomena governed by laws, yet undiscovered by conventional science. What secrets lie within these post-mortem frequencies? Are they fragments of lost knowledge, echoes of past lives, or perhaps something more active, something that, though stripped of its original form, retains an intention, a will, or a programming waiting to be deciphered? And if, for an instant, we were able to capture that echo, if we were able to tune into that frequency, what would it reveal to us? The truth about who we are beyond the body, the hidden mysteries of existence itself, Or perhaps merely the wandering whispers, the residual waves of a cosmic energy that perpetually reorganizes itself. The real question is not only whether it is possible to capture these echoes, but what it is we are actually capturing. Is it a simple footprint, or is it a door? And if it is a door, where does it lead? And what or who could cross it in the opposite direction? If what we capture is not just an echo, but a temporary separation from the physical anchor, what does that imply for the very nature of consciousness? Tesla's vision, so often dismissed by the reigning materialism, resonated with an ancient wisdom that many forbidden texts have attempted to preserve and protect throughout the ages. Consciousness is not an emerging byproduct of the brain, but a manifestation, or more precisely, a channel of universal cosmic energy. Various traditions, from shamans traveling to other planes to esoteric doctrines that speak of subtle bodies and astral projections, describe this inherent capacity of the being to operate outside the confines of the carnal envelope. The ancient Egyptians, with their complex understanding of the Ka and the Ba, already outlined aspects of consciousness that could transcend physical death and move into other realms. They are all fragments of the same hidden mysteries, veiled from most, accessible only through deep introspection and practice. These experiences, often described as out-of-body journeys, are not mere hallucinations of a disturbed mind, but possible, direct glimpses of this primordial truth, that we are vaster and less limited than our daily experience in the body allows us to believe. Inner alchemy, the arduous process of purifying and refining the self, seeks not to transform metals into gold, but to transmute consciousness itself, making it more sensitive, more capable of perceiving and operating at these subtle frequencies. This is the necessary preparation for the channel to not only open, but to be able to handle the flow of cosmic energy without collapsing. A consciousness thus refined might not only experience separation, but understand it, navigating the hidden mysteries with intention and purpose, perhaps approaching that spiritual enlightenment that is not a destination, but an expanded state of being. If consciousness can exist and operate independently, if it is a channel and not the generator, what then is being channeled? Where does this cosmic energy come from that animates us and allows us to experience reality? And if we can consciously separate ourselves from the body, what other realms, what other dimensions of existence are there, waiting to be explored? If there is a channel, there must be a source and a destination. Is the source the undifferentiated totality of cosmic energy, or is there an intelligence, an invisible structure behind it all? A map to these uncharted territories of consciousness. But if there is a channel that can be severed, what does it leave behind? What energetic imprint remains when the main consciousness withdraws? Here we find an echo of what modern minds, like Tesla's, glimpsed or intuited, the existence of residual fields. This is not a new concept for ancient wisdom, which always spoke of charged places, of the memory inherent in the earth and in structures built by human hands. These residual fields are, in essence, the vibrational persistence of a consciousness that inhabited a space, a kind of subtle electromagnetic echo, an energetic shadow that never completely dissipates. The idea of trapped souls could be interpreted not as a complete, immortal, stranded entity, but as dense fragments of that cosmic energy that animated a form, anchored to the resonance of the place or intense events. They are residues, remnants, perhaps incapable of dissolving or reintegrating into the larger flow. The hidden mysteries whisper to us that the transition is not always fluid. There are energetic knots, attachments, traumas that can leave these scars in the fabric of sensible reality. Perceiving these fields requires a sensory finesse that we rarely possess in our ordinary state. It is part of the path of inner alchemy, the refinement of perception, the purification of the instrument so that it can register these subtle frequencies without distortion or fear. Many forbidden texts, those that delve into the nature of the post-existence or the intermediate planes, describe these zones of energetic density, often represented as purgatories or shadowy realms, not as physical places, but as vibrational states created by the accumulation of emotional and mental debris. Spiritual enlightenment, in this context, is not only ascending, but also understanding and perhaps helping to dissolve these energetic anchors, facilitating the reintegration of that cosmic energy that was left behind. It is recognizing that the universe is a vast ocean of vibration, where every thought, every emotion, every existence leaves a ripple, a mark. Some of these marks are ephemeral. Others, due to intensity or lack of resolution, become persistent, creating these residual fields. If space can retain the energetic memory of existence, if these past vibrations can persist and be perceived, what does that tell us about the nature of time itself? Is time a one-way line, or is it a sea where the waves of the past still resonate? In the present, accessible to consciousness that has fine-tuned its perception through inner alchemy? If time is not a line, but a vast sea where reverberations persist, then the possibility that consciousness, freed from the dense prison of the physical body, chooses to navigate these currents is more than mere speculation. It's a logical consequence. We're not talking here about wandering souls, bound by the weight of unresolved issues, by those knots of residual energy that create the memory fields we mentioned earlier. We're talking about a conscious choice, a will that transcends simple attachment or fear. Ancestral wisdom, across countless cultures and eras, has recognized the existence of beings who, after passing, choose to remain close to the veil, not as tormented ghosts, but as guides, guardians, or simply silent observers. This idea underlies practices of ancestor veneration, invocations to guardian spirits, and shamanic rites that seek guidance from the other side. It is not a punishment. It is an act of love, a responsibility assumed from an expanded perspective. Why would a consciousness choose this path, perhaps foregoing complete dissolution or immediate reintegration into the vast cosmic energy? The hidden mysteries suggest multiple reasons: a karmic commitment to a lineage or place, a desire to assist in the spiritual enlightenment of those who remain, the continuation of a work begun in life, or simply a fascination with the drama of human existence from a different vantage point. It is a service, often invisible, that demands a particular form of inner alchemy in the one who remains, a purity of intention that seeks not worship, but balance and assistance. The prohibited texts that explore post-mortem states often differentiate between lost souls, those who ascend quickly, and those who choose this threshold service. They describe how these presences can interact with the fabric of reality, not with brute force, but through subtle influence, inspiration, synchronicity, and the modulation of ambient energy. Perceiving them requires a sensitivity that is only achieved through a profound purification and attunement of one's being. This choice to remain raises profound questions about the nature of will beyond form, about the continuing purpose of consciousness, and about the ties that truly bind us through what we call life and death. If a consciousness can choose to remain and lead, what does that tell us about the potential of our consciousness here and now? If love or purpose can anchor a being beyond the threshold, what anchors are we ourselves creating? But how does a consciousness maintain its individuality, its self, while navigating the subtle planes, potentially dissolving into the universal cosmic energy? Dissolution, the loss of individuality in the face of the immensity of cosmic energy. This, precisely, is the seed of control. It is not death itself that terrifies the conditioned being, but the narrative woven around it, the inoculated terror of loss, the loss of self, of possession, of earthly connection, as we know it. This is the great illusion, the densest veil, the fear of extinction or eternal punishment, carefully cultivated to make obedience the only apparent escape route. Power structures, whether earthly empires or dogmatic spiritual hierarchies, have understood the paralyzing power of this dread for millennia. They offer solace, salvation, promises of paradise, or warnings of abysses, all conditioned on submission to their laws, the repetition of their creeds, and their enunciation of genuine inner exploration. The ancient wisdom, which viewed death not as an end, but as a metamorphosis, a cyclical return, or a dimensional passage, was systematically supplanted or distorted. The forbidden texts that spoke of the sovereignty of the soul, of conscious reincarnation, of navigating the post-mortem planes through pure will, these were suppressed, burned, hidden within the hidden mysteries, accessible only through arduous paths that demanded a profound inner alchemy, a transmutation of one's being to see beyond the imposed fear. This fear is the strongest chain that binds humanity. It prevents genuine spiritual enlightenment, for who would dare to dissolve the illusory contours of the self if they believe that dissolution is hell or nothingness? It keeps the individual anchored to the surface, dependent on external guides who promise safety in exchange for servitude. The energy that could be directed toward self-realization, toward conscious connection with cosmic energy, is diverted to fuel anxiety and conformity. It is a state of induced sleep where death is seen not as the great awakening, but as the final nightmare or the dreaded void. Religious, political, or social conformity becomes the price of supposed salvation. From this primordial terror, a silent pact where inner freedom is surrendered in exchange for an illusion of post-mortem security. This engineering of fear strips the individual of their inherent power, their ability to discern for themselves the truth of their existence and their destiny beyond the physical form. It keeps it fragmented, removed from the totality of cosmic energy of which it is a part, and alienated from the ancient wisdom that resides within its very core, waiting to be awakened by the proper inner alchemy. But what happens when the veil of the fear of death is torn away? What realities are revealed when inner alchemy dissolves cultivated dread, allowing ancestral wisdom to resurface and hidden mysteries to speak without the distortion of dogma? If the key to freedom lies in transcending this fear, what doors await us on the other side of the liberated threshold? And more importantly, how can we recognize authentic spiritual enlightenment when counterfeits are designed to resemble light? The doors beyond the liberated threshold are not chambers of judgment or promised gardens, but spaces of pure perception. The vision of one who played with the heavens, free from the chains of dogma, resonated with the ancient hidden wisdom. Consciousness does not die. It is not a possession that requires saving by any creed, nor does it belong to any temple or prophet. Rather, it is a persistent pattern, an echo within the vast symphony of cosmic energy. The forbidden texts, or those fragments of truth deliberately obscured throughout history, hint at this reality, that consciousness is a fundamental quality of the universe, not a perishable product of the physical body. The notion of salvation, as preached by institutions, is then revealed to be an illusion, a narrative necessary only for those who perceive themselves as lost. But how could an inherent part of the whole be lost? Being lost is the veil of forgetting, the exclusive identification with finite form and its ephemeral drama. Spiritual enlightenment is not the arrival at an external destination of reward or punishment, but the internal unveiling of what you always were, a conscious fractal of cosmic energy, momentarily concentrated in form. This process is inner alchemy, transmuting the lead of the fear of annihilation into the gold of the certainty of continuity, dissolving the hidden mysteries of being that dogma has manipulated or distorted. If consciousness is eternal and intrinsic, frequency within the cosmic field, external salvation becomes a concept void of real meaning. There is no need to be saved from something you are never truly separate from, only unconscious. The Great Awakening is the realization of this oneness, a conscious resonance with origin. But if our essence is this cosmic resonance, a conscious frequency, what are the laws that govern this vibration? What patterns dictate its manifestation, its dance through the myriad forms we observe and inhabit? Is the universe itself a vast structure of conscious information, a vibrational architecture governed by even more fundamental laws than we know? This vision of reincarnation, stripped of fear and clothed in the dignity of choice, resonates with echoes of an ancient wisdom that modern institutions have striven to silence. It is not the punishment of an external judge, but the curriculum of an eternal student, the plan of a craftsman who shapes his own consciousness. The soul, this conscious particle of cosmic energy, is not cast adrift in the current of time. It navigates with purpose, selecting the experiences that will serve as catalysts for its inner alchemy. Think of the hidden mysteries of Eleusis, or the Gnostic schools that whispered of direct knowledge of the divine, challenging the hierarchical structure of salvation. In many forbidden or marginalized texts throughout history, one finds the suggestion that life in physical form is a deliberately embraced opportunity, a vibrational laboratory for refining one's own frequency, for integrating lessons that only immersion and duality can offer. The idea that the soul plans its incarnation sounds radical to the mind trapped in the linear concept of time, but it is consistent with the multidimensional nature of consciousness. Before plunging into the veil of forgetfulness that accompanies birth, the soul, in a state of greater clarity and alignment with cosmic energy, evaluates the vibrations it needs to harmonize, the patterns it needs to transcend, the karmic debts. Not as punishment, but as energetic imbalances to be restored, it needs to equalize. It chooses the lineage, the environment, the challenges, and the encounters that will offer the most fertile ground for its specific growth, for the next stage of its journey towards spiritual enlightenment. It is an act of courage and commitment, an expression of the will to serve the great cosmic purpose, which is the expansion and self-awareness of the whole. Consider the alchemical symbols: putrefaction, death and decay; sublimation, the elevation of essence; coagulation, the manifestation. In form, conscious reincarnation is the deliberate coagulation, the act of bringing essence back into form to continue the alchemical process begun in previous lives. The hidden mysteries lie not only in how this return occurs, but in why it is necessary for certain souls at certain stages. The veil of forgetfulness, which seems like an obstacle, is in fact a crucial tool, allowing the soul to experience the challenge without the glue of past memory, forcing it to rediscover the truths within, to rekindle its own spiritual enlightenment through self-overcoming and service. The forbidden texts frequently allude to this forgetfulness as part of the soul's pact before entering the body, a condition for intensive learning. But if the soul chooses, what are the criteria for this choice? What are the universal laws that govern this architecture of learning and manifestation? Is there a counsel, a greater plan, or is the choice entirely autonomous, guided only by the inherent longing of each fragment of cosmic energy to return to full consciousness of its unity? Reflect on the journey. Ancestral wisdom whispers that the return is not the end, but a stage. Inner alchemy takes place in the fires of existence, dissolving veils and revealing hidden mysteries. Spiritual enlightenment is not a destination, but the very substance of the soul, recognizing its identity in the vast cosmic energy. The forbidden texts at times only mirror what we already know deeply. The greatest law, perhaps, is not that of return, but that of incessant search. What if true freedom's not the choice to return, but to be fully in each moment, without the need for the cycle? Reflect. Leave your thoughts in the comments. If this journey resonates with you, share this light. Subscribe so you don't miss the next revelations. To deepen the connection between forbidden texts and inner alchemy, watch the video that appears on your screen now.